Let's look. Come on, YouTube. And we are live. Welcome to episode 24 of Shifty Perspective. Today we are joined by Lee Jones. He is the founder of global fightwear brand Tatami and also the professional grappling event Polaris. I had the pleasure of meeting Lee a few months back, and it's great to have you on the podcast. So welcome, Lee. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, great. I think it's probably important just to delve straight into it and find out a bit about yourself. Obviously, I've said what you do, but if you want to explain to people who aren't aware of Tatami, and tell me a bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, I'm one of the owners. There's two of us, myself and Gareth, are the owners at Tatami.
Okay.
So we'd be the founders and two directors, and as you mentioned, we're a global fightwear brand. We ship products to over 90 countries across the world, and grappling products, Jiu-Jitsu, sundries, we do other good MMA products as well, but largely it's the BJJ and grappling products. Started our research for the company sometime back in 2008. I was taking my children were young at the time. Excuse me, took them to a local jiu-jitsu class. Judo was my passion when I was younger, up until my early 20s. And my kids were doing martial arts. I wanted to take them to jiu-jitsu. I could see it was a decent sport, so I took them to the local class. And one of the young instructors there, I think still only a blue belt at the time, back in about 2006, 2007, was Gareth. So we got chatting away and things, and he expressed an interest in setting a brand up for jiu-jitsu products. And I thought, wow, that's something that's early in the United Kingdom. We'd be in there early in the market, bottom rung and all that. So I said, yeah, okay, I'm game for that. So I invested the money, and Gareth had some ideas. Of course, he was a young youngster with plenty of go in him. So we got our first batch of products, a set of gold weave gis, about 100 and odd pieces, a couple of shorts, a couple of rash guards, and took some photos in my front room. Things weren't quite as professional in those days. And that's where it started. So that's where Tatami started. And, we persevered for the first 12 to 18 months, sometimes selling 10 gis a week, sometimes selling 2. And
where was this, by the way? Where did you start?
Well, 2009, we did our research in 2008 and got some sample products in 2008. And we were hoping to launch for Christmas that year, but typical factory fashion, delays upon delays. We didn't get our shipment until early in 2009. So we didn't start trading until about February 2009. And that's where it started. So we had a quiet first year, although it was a reasonable. We did okay. Nothing major profitable, but into our second year, then we took on a small sponsorship with one of the greats, one of the legends, who was kind of returning back to the sport after some troubled times. It was Fernando Terere. So we'd had word he was coming to the UK to sort of start his regeneration in the sport. So we contacted him in the UK, got a gi on him, got some pictures of him, some stuff. He was just delighted that somebody had some interest in him because he was returning to the sport after the troubled times. So after that, our popularity, we did a short promo video, Terere, Return of a Champion, which is on YouTube. It had some phenomenal views. It went viral for a spell. And once that kind of helped to get our brand name recognized a little bit, and things started to explode from there. Then we haven't looked back. Our growth has been phenomenal.
Wow. Were you selling online to start with, or were you selling in shops or locally?
It was always online. We were always an online company, and we took the decision in the early days just to sell from the website. We didn't want to be known as an eBay brand or an Amazon brand. We wanted to just get established as our brand first and foremost. Of course, things change now. You do put our products on Amazon or eBay. But at that time, we wanted to be established as a standalone brand, not just a Johnny-come-lately brand that was going to fizzle out So we had intentions of sticking around for a long time, and so far so good.
I mean, you are literally probably the most well-known brand in jiu-jitsu that I can think of. I mean, everyone knows who Tatami is if you roll, right? Really.
It's difficult for us to say. I think we know a lot of owners of other brands as well, and I think our volume of sales is massive, especially in Europe. We have a decent presence in the United States. We used to have a much bigger presence. Some of the big stores that were in the US, we were always their number one or number two selling product. With a lot of the, but some of those stores have either closed down or decided not to stock us anymore because they have their own brands. So it's difficult to gauge where we are in the United States at the moment. But we do have a presence, of course we do. But we're not as visible with those big stores that used to carry our lines. But we have our own USA store, and it's direct to retail, and we do have some wholesalers out there. But yeah, it's difficult to gauge in the world. You don't know what other companies are doing in terms of volume. But I think we place quite well. We might be on the podium.
Cool. Well, it must be quite a weird feeling to suddenly to go from like taking your kid to jiu-jitsu to being like, wow, people are wearing, your gis everywhere, and
it came quite quickly. I'll be quite honest with you. I was never meant to really be that involved with the brand. I had some other things on the go at the time, and it was mainly for Gareth. I invested the money. I was going to help get set up. In the early days, for about the first 14 months, Gareth kept a part-time job because he needed some kind of income, obviously to live, to feed himself. So, he took a massive pay cut from his original full-time job so as he could work part-time for Tatami. And then there was a turning point where Gareth broke his arm in training, and he had to take 6 weeks off his part-time job. So he gave him 6 weeks full-time with Tatami. And Gareth put so much effort to put it, because Gareth's his background is in retail. So, he had some skills in retail. He already knew, and of course he did jiu-jitsu. So it was a match made in heaven, really. He had some skills. I had some money. Let's put it together and see what we can do with it. So I expected we'd do quite well because we're both quite positive people. We both, we're not, we've got a little bit of a brain about it. Each of us have. But it came so quickly, and I could see that I wasn't able to let Gareth run with it and me just go back and just have phone call meetings with him twice a week or come and see him for an hour once a day. It clearly needed me to help him out to run it as well. So of course that meant ultimately I was there all the time. In the early days, Gareth still had his part-time job. I was there all the time. And then when Gareth finished, we were both there all the time. So it kind of did accelerate much quicker than I thought, but happy days. I'll take that.
Yeah. What did you do before? Like, have you got backgrounds in business then beforehand?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I worked in the steel industry. My last job working for somebody else was in the steel industry until 2001, and I had an accident in work which put me off. I was quite seriously injured. I had fractured my spine in 2 places, and I had some burns and inhalation. So I won very well for 3 months. I was 3 months and a half. So I was a month in a coma, induced coma.
Oh, really? Shit.
And there was years of me trying to get back into some degree of fitness, which the back is still a problem, which it renders me a little bit inactive in a lot of things, other than going for a swim, which I'm going to do after this podcast.
Nice.
I get an awful lot of exercise because it takes its toll on me. But that was when I was in the steel industry. But always for many years, for 25 years, I've always had some properties, some rentals or some renovations and things. But that's always been a sideline of mine as well. So
Cool.
That's what I was planning to do when I set Tatami. I was going to step back from Tatami, continue with some property, and leave Tatami right alongside. And it didn't happen for many years.
Nope.
So, but I've recently started doing a little bit, dipping my toe back into the water. And I'd like to do a little bit more, and it's finding the right places. So that's kind of, I was brought up. I grew up with my parents in business, so I always knew that someday I would be doing something like that. But of course, around here, there's so much regular work. You could do your business on the side. So that's kind of what you would.
Now it's just like everything full time for you, right? I mean, I'm guessing you're working on this every day.
Yeah, tatami is every day. I mean, I'm lucky enough now that we have a lot of staff. So I'm lucky enough now. All areas are kind of covered by staff members and managers. So I'm able to step back quite a lot. So the day-to-day stuff, I hardly get involved.
Nice.
Anymore. You know, I can, of course, with the pandemic, you do a little bit of work from home. I still go into the office because we have a skeleton crew in the office. So I go in to see those guys every day. Then I go across to the warehouse to check if those guys are okay. And go in for some meetings, and it's largely all meetings and making decisions now and answering emails to me. I don't have an awful lot to do with it. It is more or less Gareth's taking the reins.
Cool.
He's got the managers under him that are running the day-to-day stuff, which is great for me because I got one eye on retirement. I'm an older gentleman, so I got one eye thinking of an early retirement, you know?
Nice. Well, what about, you've also now got Polaris as well, right? So that's, I'm guessing that's taken over sometimes.
Yeah.
It's still quite a new thing. When did you start that?
Oh, you know, Polaris, we're on our 15th incarnation. I'm going to say 5 years, Polaris. It seems.
Okay, cool.
I've got 4 or 5 years, I think, right? Between 4 and 5, I believe. It's really kept up, and when we look back at it, I thought, we've been at it now a few years, and it's actually a little bit longer than we'd first thought. I can't remember the exact first date, to be honest. I'm rubbish at remember. I've got an old man memory. But yeah, we talked about Polaris with Matt and Ben and the other 2 directors, because there's 4 of us involved: Gareth, myself, Matt, and Ben. Matt Benyon and Ben Tong. We got friendly with those guys. They have another company similar to our Scramble, and we got friendly with those guys when we went over to sponsor the IBJJF Europeans in Lisbon. We wanted to fight back against some of the new brands that were trying to step on the turf. So we sort of collaborated a little bit to have our first booth out in Lisbon.
Nice.
I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I guess. So we kind of got friendly with those guys, and we started our companies about the same sort of time. So we knew the boys. We used to see them on the circuit, and you know, they're a nice bunch of lads. So Gareth and I had been talking about doing some kind of a pay-per-view sort of live grappling event. We've been talking about it for a long time, but Tatami was taking up so much time. We said, I said, it'll be too much for us to do because we're doing so much with Tatami. It's going to be impossible. We were growing at a rapid rate of knots. So when we mentioned this to the guys, Matt and Ben, they said, we've been talking about it as well. We said, okay, well, look, if there's 4 of us, maybe we'll give it a go and set up to do our first event. So yeah, that's what we did. And luckily for Polaris, of course, the early days, when you don't know how it's going to pan out, you start losing money hand over fist. So we had the backing of both companies to be able to sustain that in the early days.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so bad. But yeah, you know, we went along with the standard submission only format and invitations, a prelim card, and etc. And I got to one stage where I don't think we were making enough profit. And we said, look, it's a lot of work. It's not a no profit. And our own companies were suffering a little bit as a result. So we said, look, we make a decision to maybe close it down. And with that, the UFC came in and said, look, we're interested in your show. We'd like to, to buy you show a few for the to show on Fight Pass.
Wow,
that changes things up for that. Yeah, okay, let's continue down that road. So of course we've signed a contract with the UFC and we're moving along with those guys quite happily at the moment. So and things have been difficult during the pandemic because we've tried to make events to fulfill contracts for the UFC. They are desperate for content. And with limited travel, we try to make the best we can, try to make the best events we can. So this is where we come across the idea for squads, where the team's making a team event. So we're going to try and make it more to play for as a team rather than just individuals rocking up and competing. And the format seems to be working. It seems to be quite exciting, these short 5-minute matches. We seem to be getting a lot of good feedback on the socials. So happy with that.
Does the UFC let you know how many people watch them, and do you have a way of tracking that?
They generally give us feedback. It's basic feedback about how well we're doing and how good it is. They're a bit guarded with some of their data, but they do let us know if we're doing well. So far, they've never told us we're not doing well. We like to get some feedback off them about the last two events, because of course we can only use like British and European guys, and we just like to see how it's been received. Personally, I enjoyed the events, the best two events we've done in terms of excitement for the squads. The fighters seem to enjoy it. People on social media seem to enjoy it. So we're just waiting to hear for the UFC. They seem to enjoy it. We've had some feedback, but we'd like it'd be nice to have a little bit more detailed feedback from them. It would be great.
Do you plan to do US events then?
We did consider that once upon a time. We thought maybe take it to New York, but I think the UFC are kind of keen for us to keep it in Europe. I think Polaris it gives the European customers something on their times. So you can watch at 7 p.m. or whatever, 6 p.m. and they can watch it early evening on a Saturday, as opposed to if we did it in the USA and we did it 6 or 7 p.m. in the USA, our guys in Europe have to get up at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, whatever it might be. So, it's maybe there's an option of us doing it in the USA, but doing it in the afternoon. And so our guys can still get to watch it in the UK. I don't know. We've not discussed that. We've not discussed that with the UFC. That was just one of my ideas as part. But it could be more cost effective for us, because we've only got to fly the team out. There's the 4 directors that are on it, and Sophie, who works us, who's our coordinator and manager, who steers the ship. She does a very good job. She'd have to go out with us, and maybe a photographer. So that's it. We fly ourselves out. Most of the American guys, if we had a Team America, it's easy to get them into New York, California, wherever we chuck it. It could be an exciting thing. We're at a disadvantage here in Europe. If we need to get some big names on the card, we have to generally bring them in from the USA. There are some big names in Europe, don't misunderstand. There's some massive names in Europe. But if we need to get somebody to fight against them, they got to come from the States, usually. And, I mean, big flight ticket bills and things. So it's us eating into all your profit now.
I would love to see, to be honest, though, some of the UK and European fighters take on some of the Americans. It'd be really interesting to see, Ashley Williams.
Yeah.
Fighting.
I think no-gi. I think some of the Team UK and Ireland to take on a Team USA would be a great event. I fancy, but in the gi, Team Europe against Team USA. And you think of the last event with Tommy Langecker and Espen and those guys, Adam Wazinski, those guys in the gi were outstanding, and Dino Bucalet, that the choke at it was outstanding, the performances of those guys. It's difficult to find a team to compete against those guys. They're all such high level. It seems the Europeans are very much into their gi. They're very gi orientated. So, it's there's a lot of British guys very good in the gi, but a lot of guys are moving on to no gi at the moment. Some of our top guys in Europe have been. We got Ash Williams, Ross Nichols. They tend to only train no gi at the moment. I think ADCC is for them. Do they ever compete in gi? Ash or Ross? Not anymore. I mean, Ash and Ross. Ash and Ross. They used to compete in the gi quite regular, but I picked those two in particular because they're Tatami sponsors and we know them quite well. So we've asked them about their gi antics, and they've said, no, they want to concentrate. I think they train in the gi. I'm pretty sure that Ash still trains in the gi, but as far as competing is concerned, I don't think so. Because they'd have to train very hard in a gi for a competition. They can't just rock up and say, I'll put a gi on today, I'll enter the Euros. It's a different game to no gi, so they'd have to specify the training, I guess.
I've just got a question actually from somebody listening right now. They say, big fan of Tatami. Can we expect, after the Iron Maiden Rush Guards, Slayer Rush Guards and gi, and the Retro Sega series, a new SE collection from a band or gaming brand?
I'll be quite honest with you. When we look at the licensing gigs that we do, they're very expensive, as you can imagine. We've got to pay money up front for these licensing gigs. So we've got to be sure that these things are going to sell. So when we look at a new licensing product, if we have a gi and a rash guard, we got to double up on a licensing fee. So you pay them a set fee to begin with. commissions as well for the rash guard, but then you've got to do it. You've got to pay for the gi as well. So every product you have, you've got to pay a license for. So it's got to sell. We got to make sure. So It's got to be kind of almost iconic things that people are going to, and it's got to be from a certain era, a certain period. We know what our demographic is, what our market is. We know the age group of the people that appeals to. So we can look then and think, what was the Sega was the game of the day of an age group that we have to weigh all these things up and then see how much money's left in the pot to pay the licensing, because it doesn't come cheap. So I mean, we go to these licensing conventions when we're allowed to, when we're not all locked down. And
what is that then? How does that work? Like, it's just all of these brands have tables there trying to sell themselves.
Yeah. We go up to London, and there's booths and stalls, and generally you have to make an appointment to go and visit and meet them. You make a 20-minute appointment with whoever you think might suit your brand. So you go and you meet, you talk to them, you find out what their terms are and how much it costs. And then you swap cards, drop them an email, see what you can do. And if they are happy for you to represent them, because obviously they want to do a bit of research on your brand. If your brand is not ethical, not desirable, if you're a dodgy brand, for argument's sake, they might say, look, we don't want you making up, we don't put Motorhead on your products because we think you're an unethical brand. So they want to do a bit of research on you as well. So. But you just go and if you're interested, you see if you can do a deal. Because of course we're a very niche market. So I say when we go to these licensing gigs, we're the only jiu-jitsu brand, a grappling brand that are there. People swiftly. So look, our market is grappling and jiu-jitsu. Yeah, they're never going to say, actually somebody else has got that gig for this product. It's very rare, very, very rare.
Can you
Harry Potter gig? That's the big one, I think.
What's that? Sorry,
I'd like the Harry Potter gig. We've tried, just can't get it. And I think that would go crazy if you could get a Harry Potter gig.
I think that would be really. I imagine that would be a lot of money though. Like
I think so. Yeah. So far, we've had no. So I'm sorry, we're not looking for anything in your sector. So very hard to get hold of, that is.
Can you negotiate and haggle on these things? Because how do they decide? I think my brand is worth, the band that I'm in is worth X 50,000 to be on a t-shirt.
They have a set thing. They have a set fee. So they'll say, look, you've got to pay us a minimum of X amount.
Yeah.
And the commission is amount per product or percentage. If you reach that down payment, then pay the extra up.
Oh, hello. Oh, I've lost you.
Ash?
Oh, hey, yeah, you're breaking up a bit.
Can you hear me
still?
Are you all right?
Oh, it's breaking up. Sorry. Oh, I'm losing your signal. It says that your signal is dropping down on my phone.
Let me see. It could be me. It could be me. It could be me. It could be me.
Okay, that's better.
So let me. Okay, I'll just try a different approach. There we are. Tidy. Okay.
There we go.
Right. Cool. Sorry. Yeah. So generally, they will say, this is what the down payment is. This is what this is the percentage. So once you've sold X amount of products, once you've gone past that down payment, then you pay them extra. So if, for argument's sake, you have to sell 1,000 pieces to get to the initial down payment and you sell 1,500, you pay further commission on those extra 500. It's all set in stone. It's difficult to negotiate with these guys.
Wow. Sounds like it's a lot of work really, especially if it's just something that you really need to be sure that it's going to be.
That's right. Yeah, lots of people say, it'd be great if you did this rash guard, but yeah, you don't want to be dropping thousands and thousands of pounds and then only selling 150 of them. You've just lost a lot of money then. So you've got to be sure.
How have you found lockdown and COVID has affected the business and the scene in general? I mean, obviously people can't train properly, I guess.
Yeah,
in the UK.
It was a big concern of ours initially, because of course our sport is reliant on two people getting together and getting close contact. Yeah. So it was a big concern of ours. What was going to happen? Now, of course, we've got a lot of amazing customers who continue to buy. They were at home, locked down themselves, the world over. They continue to buy our products. Largely at leisure wear. Our t-shirt sales went up 400%, maybe hoodies and things. But of course, it was difficult to get products in as well. So as quick as we were selling them, it was difficult to replenish the stock because they take time to come in. Our gis, we stockpiled our gis. Oh my God, have we got some gis? We've got some gis. Yeah. They start to sell again, of course, as people are starting to train a little bit now. Mm-hmm. But it was very scary, and yes, we did take some losses for a good few months. But I think we're managing to keep ourselves on an even keel at the moment. So it's cool. Could have been a lot worse. I'm just very grateful that we got some very loyal customers, and they've kept the brand alive, so we can still be there when we come out of it.
I think a lot of businesses. I know a lot of businesses are suffering massively. I don't know how it works in the UK, but I'm in the Netherlands, and so many companies are having to, like, their staff can't work, but they're still having to pay wages. The government is subsidising. I think government pays 70%, but then they still have to pay 30%. Which, if you've got a big staff on payroll, that can really add up and cripple.
Yeah. It does, yeah. I think we've got about, I can't remember the exact number, we've taken some temps over Christmas. We got about 20 odd staff, 22 maybe, something like that. I don't remember the exact number. So it's a lot of salary you have to cover. Mm-hmm. And the government we did have some guys who went into the furlough scheme where the government covered 80%, which was great. And we had a hardcore crew that stayed in, and especially the guys in the warehouse, because the sales were still crazy sales, lots of sales, but the profit wasn't quite there because we were doing flash sales, trying to encourage and stimulate people to buy the products because we needed revenue. So the guys were down, the warehouse crew were cut in half in terms of numbers and still turning the same numbers out. So they were tired.
Oh, shit. Hard work.
Really hard. So and then now they've got it coming for Black Friday, so that's they've got about 2 or 3 weeks of hopefully crazy sales for Black Friday.
Yeah, I imagine it. That's like for us as well. It's always the absolute craziest time of the year. Like Black Friday, it just doubles or sometimes triples the sales on that day. And now they've added in, there's Cyber Monday as well. So it kind of just rolls on, and But hopefully everything happening right now is coming, at least starting to lift up. And people can start going.
There's hope. The vaccinations, they seem quite credible. So hopefully by the summertime next year, things will be back to some sort of normality. Who knows? We might even get the Worlds back on next year, and maybe the Masters in Vegas. So already people have taken the steps to say. I think ADCC have said that's cancelled, so that's in September in Vegas. They've said, look, they're going to move it on to the following year. So some people have said, some organisations have said, look, we're not going to take the chance, because of course ADCC needs to have trials and things also. So it's it's longer than more than just the event. Maybe the IBJJF can put events on because they don't need to have trials. So they can say, okay, all right, we got vaccinations. Yeah, we think everything's cool. We can have crowds back now. Yeah, right. The World is back on. Let's do it. Maybe it's easier for those guys. But,
it's still risky though, right? Because there's still money being put in to organise something that, if it gets cancelled, that's still time and money that.
But what I'm saying is for now, everything's cancelled. There's no. There's been the odd. As I understand it, there's been the odd IBJJF competition in the States, in the United States. Some states have had the odds, as I understand it. I couldn't tell you which ones, but I'm sure I flicked through Facebook and I found one saying this was the such and such open. So there are some small competitions happening. But what I'm saying is with the IBJJF, unlike ADCC, where they need to have trials and the like, which so it's more than just the event on that weekend.
Yeah.
IBJJF can make a decision, possibly a month or two out, and say, well, look, now that they've said we can go ahead and go back to normal and have crowds and things, yes, we're going to, we're opening registration for the tournament. All they got to do is book the venue, and they can do it because they don't need any preparation. They don't need preparation. Don't misunderstand me. They don't need 12 months worth or 2 years worth of preparation. They could get it done in a couple of months, I guess.
True.
So we don't know. Maybe February, March time, once the vaccinations start coming out, maybe we'll see more tournaments and more interaction.
What are the plans for Polaris next year? Have you got anything solid or cemented for that?
Well, we're supposed to have our usual 4 shows for the UFC. That's we contracted to do 4 shows a year, and we usually have our season is kind of from March to November, usually. So we've been discussing a show in March, and what's going to happen, because of course the difficulty is knowing who's available to us. Is it just UK and Europe again? It's difficult to come up with something that's going to keep the excitement there. We want to give the UFC something. They want some content. We want to give them the best content we can. But we don't have the pool of people that we would like to pick from. So we still at a bit of a loose end. Maybe we'll make some more decisions in the new year when there's more news about the vaccinations and if travel restrictions are lifted, then we'll consider what we're going to do. But March, we're expecting one in March. It's not confirmed as yet. That's generally what we would do as the first one of the year.
How do you find it for the squads? How was that not having a crowd?
Sorry, how was it? Not squads not having what?
Not having a crowd. Was that that was the first event without a crowd, right?
Yeah, it was. It's unusual. It is unusual. I mean, I watch the sport on the telly, and they've started putting crowd noises on it. It's really, I like the crowd noise. I watch it without. It's very sterile, and it's disconcerting. But sorry,
did you say on telly they started adding crowd noise?
Yeah. When I watch the rugby and things on telly, and I know the football do it. I don't watch the football, but they do it. They sort of add crowd noises, and there's a guy with a button. If something exciting happens, there's a guy who goes, whoa, So you kind of listening to what's happening with the crowd as if a crowd was there. It's not the same as a normal crowd, don't get me wrong. It's synthesized, but I still prefer it to having no crowd noise. It's quite awkward and as I say, sterile, and it throws you off your game. Now, with the squads, that was another thing with the squads, because there's 8 guys there and it's a team event. You've got 7 other guys shouting for you. So there's a little mini crowd for each team. So it does generate a little bit of atmosphere. Of course, us as organisers have to be non-partisan. We can't shout for a team, but we can clap when something good happens and what have you. So the 20 or so guys that are around doing what we do, try to shout as loud as we possibly can. But the team gives it a small bit of atmosphere, so you are aware that there's something exciting going on. But it is very, very strange.
I noticed something for I'm watching all of the UFC events and the difference in the coaching, because you can hear what the other corner's saying. So you've got to really be careful, because if you're like, okay, go for a left hook jab, and then they hear that and then they just interpret that and react. I think it was the first or second event that they did in the Apex, the UFC. The following event, Joe Rogan said that one of the guys, he submitted somebody up, I don't know with what, but he submitted somebody, and he went on to Joe Rogan afterwards, and he said, I could hear you commentating, saying what he needs to do, and what this guy needs to do is kick his arm. He said, and I listened to you. He said, I done it, and I submitted the guy. So thanks to Joe Rogan on the side, some poor bugger had to tap out. So it's quite, it's wow. Did that happen with you at Polaris? Could you what was it like for the cornering? I don't really know how it works.
Well, the thing is, it's different with grappling events, because even when it's just a one-on-one and it's not a team event and you've got a cornerman, the crowd are very quiet. They're respectful. When it's sort of when it's all sort of a bit of tactics going on, the crowd are quiet. You can always hear the coaches anyway. But it's like when you've got a big event, MMA, there's always a crowd rumble. It's never quiet. there's always a din, isn't there? So you can't hear the coaches. But I mean, with Polaris and with with the teams, because they didn't have their own individual coaches because, of course, the COVID restrictions. But you'd have somebody from the team always shouting out instructions, So you do hear it anyway. So people are used to it. So,
how do you have to get a special license for doing sport competitions at the moment, or how does it work? And was it easy?
Yeah, it's Sophie, who's our full-time events coordinator. She's fantastic, I'll be honest with you. She looks after all of that. And we do have to become COVID compliant. We have to make sure that we are jumping through the right hoops and we are doing things correctly. In how we run the event, what we do, and we have COVID checks when we get there. The fighters who in the UK were on elite athlete status, because obviously they live in from this, so they get to have elite status, which allows them to earn money doing what they do. So those guys, they're meant to be doing their own, their gyms are allowed to open, and they've got a small training bubble. They have to jump through their hoops as well, so they can do that themselves. So yeah, we all have to play our part, and when we get together, we have to make sure we look after the fighters quite well. And if there's any suspicion of any any signs of the virus, we take full action and make sure that we look after that person and get them tested and straight away.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Have you got any other plans for other ventures or anything? I mean, that you can talk about maybe, or anything?
I'm trying to tone down on the ventures. Gareth and I are always doing various things. We're always looking at various little angles of things, and we go so far down the road and it's just taking too much time. It takes you away from tatami or from other things. We always end up saying, you know what, forget about it. And we have some great ideas. We could do this, we could do that. And I think, look, let's just do what we know. Let's do what we've been doing for the last 10 years, 12 years, and do what we know, and keep do what we do, but do it better.
Yeah, and then it'll just get better and better the more experience you get with it. So
yeah.
What kind of things do you think are important at the moment for people who just started out in business trying to survive? Have you got any tips or any advice?
Starting out now, people who started out now since March, it's very brave of you. If you've done that. I'm not so brave. I mean, if you decided to start an online company of products that people desperately need, hand sanitizer company, now's the time to start it, because everybody in the world needs it now, and it's on you. I don't think you need any tips from me, but in any other industries, I mean, you've got to have a good online presence, a good social media team, and everything's got to be professional. Like Gareth and I, when we started, internet shopping was a thing, but not by everybody. It was in the minority. So Gareth and I got away with pictures of him in my living room in a gi, like a stud, and cut his head off and just photoshopped around and put it on, and we got away with that for a while, and then things, we had to get better and better. Of course, now they have to be red hot from the start. So and if you start in a company now for an online company, as I say, you need to have high-end images. You need to have good video content, good web presence, good social media, and all these things cost money. So it's not just a case of do you know what, like we did. I'm going to buy 120 gis and start a gi company. Could do it then. Can't do it like that now. It's really you got to have a little bit more about you, a bit more pizzazz, and maybe a few more quid behind you, because you've got to have professionalism from the start.
Yeah, I think maybe people are way less forgiving now.
Yeah.
And the more the internet is used by everybody across the world, and it's normalized. Like even people's own social media on their Instagram, people pay to get professional photos, and it's like everything's so high end. So as a business, you just have to do that from the start. Definitely.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had no idea that Tatami was a Welsh company. Yeah. Like, it wasn't until we met, and I was a bit shocked. Well, it was when I met your son at first, and
Callum, yeah.
Like, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're from Wales." And I was like, "What?" I just always assumed like Tatami was Japanese company.
Yeah.
Why did you come up with the name? And
it was a working title to begin with.
Yeah.
We just called it Tatami. Obviously, the mats that we train on, tatamis. So
Yeah.
it was a working name until we found something better, something more to do with the sport, you know.
Yeah.
But everything we said sounded corny, you know. Rear naked fightwear or anything like that, or you know what I mean, those kinds of things, or Kimura fight, or those. Actually, there is a Kimura fight at the moment, but all these other things that weren't taken by another brand all sounded quite corny, and we danced around it for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And in the end, we said, "Well, look, we'll just stick with the working title. It's what we fight. It's what we fight on." I mean, there's the Brazilian magazine Tatami as well. So it was a term used in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, yeah, kind of
cool. Okay.
Looking for something cool. It was more of a practical name than a cool name, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's just to the point. It's good. I think that's nice not to have the corny. Yeah. What did you say? Kimura kimonos? Did you say?
Well, yeah. You know, there's rear naked joke kimonos or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, yeah. I don't know. There's all kinds of names. We danced. We looked at a few Welsh names and tried to anglicize a few Welsh names and things, but you know, it just. And I thought with tatami, yes, you know, the guys who were training on the tatami mats in both Brazilian and Japanese jiu-jitsu, because in the early days we did say, well, look, we want to alienate ourselves from traditional jiu-jitsu because we can still sell our products to those guys. You know, it's an open marketplace. But then we quickly learned that there is a separation, there is a difference. People want somebody involved in a BJJ brand, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brand, rather than traditional, and they are separate. And we do know that BJJ guys like things that are owned and run by people who are involved in BJJ.
Mm-hmm.
Not, you know, this is why your Nikes and your Reeboks and your Adidas are not that massive in these sports. I think there is a little bit of snobbery from the BJJ guys, and rightly so. Yeah. I'm saying rightly so.
Yeah,
a little
definitely.
bit of that. You know, I mean, we want to stick with guys who are, you know, Gareth's a black belt himself, has been for, I think, 6 years now. And, you know, it's somebody involved in the brand. And I think that's what BJJ guys like, I think. Somebody whose finger is relatively on the pulse.
I think that's really important, actually. I think more brands should do that. More communities that should support brands run by people involved in their community. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it is. It's certainly a good way to go. But there's so many powerhouses out there. Your Under Armours, your Nikes, and Reebok. They're huge. So it is difficult to compete. It was just nice to be in an industry where we don't feel too threatened by those. I mean, it may come eventually. You don't know.
That was literally my next question. Actually, I was going to ask you. Yeah. I've just got another question actually from someone listening. They say, tatami is great. Gis under 65 quid is so good for the community. I love your Thinker Monkey rash guard designs. Any chance of seeing more Thinker Monkey designs in the future? I like these ones as well. They're really cool.
Well, believe it or not, the Thinker Monkey is so old. It has our old logo on the arm. And that logo we haven't had for about 6 years easy must be. It is such an old design. I've never in a million years when we had the design done, I said to Gareth, we'll sell a few of those. I can't think of any single design, and this might even go out for other brands as well. I don't know. So tens of thousands of items of the Thinker Monkey have gone out the door since we started selling them. We've done the spats, we've done the shorts, we've done the rash guards. In the early days, we jumped on it with the t-shirts, with the hoodies, with everything. We've done them all. We've done Thinker Monkey gis. We've done them all. And of course, they stopped selling. The t-shirts sold a few. The hoodies hardly sold. The gis sold the odd gi. So we've done them already, you know. So it's whether we go back and do it again. Maybe now the popularity of the design, having had such longevity for the last 5 or 6 years, maybe we would sell a lot more gis or a lot more of the t-shirts. I don't know.
I think so. I think if you had like a V2, like the a new one.
We did a V2 as well. We done a Thinker Monkey V2 rash guard, but it doesn't sell as well. It was a short sleeve one, but it doesn't sell. Even now, it still doesn't sell as well as the long sleeve original. Honest to God. Amazing.
Weird, huh?
And that is our most copied design. We have a counterfeit team that scour the internet and the sites and things to pull down people selling counterfeit gear of ours. And the thing is, it's everywhere we go. In fact, I just had another link sent to me the other day of somebody doing it with T-shirts and hoodies, and nothing on it, just the design, no writing or anything. It's the most copied and ripped off design of ours across the world. And even somebody said there's a link on a Chilean TV show, and it was they were on a catwalk going down there. It was a fashion show, and they were going down there. And there was a guy, they changed the writing from tatami to something else, which I won't give them any credence. But and he was on a TV show, and these guys walking down the catwalk, and he's got the thinker monkey design. He gives the pout and the look, and jeez, man.
What can you do about that?
Well, we've got trademarks in countless countries around the world, but we've pumped tens of thousands of pounds into getting our trademarks into various countries. But you've got to engage the services of a lawyer to do it. And each time it could be talking about a couple of thousand. It's very difficult to monitor. So what we do, we use a company called Red Points, and they're a Spanish company, and they've got bots, algorithms that scour the net for copyright artwork, for copyright no name, or people trying to sell our products, selling it as tatami, but fake. So usually factories in China quite often. So they scour the net, and we've got a portal. One of our team members looks at it every day or a couple of times a week, and he clicks the ones that are definitely fake. Because sometimes our resellers or wholesalers are on there, so he clicks them as good sellers, put them onto a whitelist. So then they'll go into Facebook, Amazon, eBay, whatever it might be, Etsy, and then they'll get them taken down. So they act on our behalf, you see. So they're like a counterfeit and fake product. They're not they're not lawyers. They're but they act on our behalf to get the product removed from sale.
So that must be frustrating, especially. I mean, it's flattering, but it's frustrating when you see like Chinese factories copying it and selling it. I'm guessing undercutting you, and then
one of the most frustrating is one company out there. Again, I won't mention their name, and they sell it from China. All our designs are on there, but they might tweak, they might add a little something to it, but they're identical to our design, but they've added an extra panda or an extra monkey or something, put their name across it. But now they're trying to sell to wholesalers. I had a deal with a company in Canada recently who had these products from this company in China.
Yeah.
They do. They just drop ship it. They just a website and a face. They ship in.
Yeah. Oh.
So I had to get in touch with these guys in Canada to get to shut their Facebook down. Well, our Red Points team do it. They do it as a matter of course. But that, I think I've lost a connection again.
Oh, I've got you here.
Yeah. My connection said unstable, but yeah. So anyway, these guys, they not only are they selling it for the Chinese factories, they're getting people to wholesale for them. So it's a step beyond. So it is frustrating. It's frustrating.
God damn it! That is invent your own thing. Why don't they at least do their own design? I just think it's lazy. Yeah. But there we go. What can you do? We do our best to get them removed. I mean, our portal, since we've been with them the last few years, I think they've saved the amount of products they've removed amounts to about $500,000 or something worth of product that they've had counterfeits removed over the last 3 years or so. I mean, it's not to say those people that are buying these counterfeit products, it's not to say they were ever going to buy one of ours anyway, because they're only going to buy it if it's $15. They're never going to buy it off us. They usually into the Chinese market or the American market. If it's $50 from us, or they're going to buy the counterfeit ones for $15. They're never going to. If they're only looking for the best price, perhaps they're never going to buy it from us. Yeah. But the thing that grinds my gear most is when people leave reviews. Oh, fabulous product, excellent, great shipping, great company. It really does. It does. It gets my back up when people leaving good feedback to the counterfeiters. That's what I don't. Yeah. God damn it! Yeah, I would be. I'd have a whole team just purposely out there leaving bad reviews on all of all their websites for sure.
Yeah. Maybe that's our next job role. Get somebody in to put bad reviews.
I don't know. Did you hear about that guy in Thailand who left a bad review at the hotel, at the restaurant, at hotel, and he got arrested because in Thailand it's illegal to there's some law against like defamation of a company basically, and so this guy said he left a TripAdvisor thing, and he was staying in Thailand, and he got arrested, and he spent a few months in prison, I think. I'll just have a look.
You can't. There's no freedom of speech in Thailand, then, is that right?
Nope.
Wow.
Where is it? Let's have a look. American faces prison in Thailand over bad hotel review. Wesley Barnes posted a negative review on TripAdvisor. He was held in. He was held in jail for 2 nights before they released him on bail, and then he had to stay in the country until it was going to court, or they agreed to drop the case. Basically, the hotel dropped the charges eventually. But yeah, it's terrifying.
So if there's one thing I've learned from this now, Ash, is when you go to Thailand and you look at a TripAdvisor to see where to go to eat or where to stay, ignore the reviews because they're all going to be 5-star, I guess.
Yep. Oh, it's great. They have that same. They've got leash measure as well. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's against like saying anything bad about the royal family. And so there are people in prison doing, I think it's like, maybe it's 14 years per crime. So there are people who posted on Facebook something which they're maybe the anti-royal family. Where is it? Anti-royal law Thailand. It's called leash majest in Thailand, and it's illegal to defame, insult the king, queen, or heir apparent or regent, and that also applies to any previous monarch. And it is described as the strictest criminal defamation law anywhere in the world. You can go to prison for. So look, I'm not sure how long it is. The longest recorded sentence is 60 years imprisonment, reduced in half to 30 years because they pled guilty.
Wow, that's crazy. That is
pretty terrifying. Yeah. How have you guys been with being locked down? What's the actual rules there? And in Wales, it's different to England, right? And
yeah, it is.
I mean, coping mentally with it.
Yeah. There's been. I've kept a couple of vineyards open in Italy and France. I think with I'll be quite honest too. That's got me through it, but I've toned that down a little bit now. So okay. It's been the big thing for us initially was it was very tough and very worrying because we didn't know what was going to happen with the sport. I mean, we were making losses in those first 3 months, and that was scary. I was happy that the losses weren't as bad as I first thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be much, much worse. So I was a little bit pleased by the end of the 3rd month. We'd only lost X amount. So yeah, as we started, it was a little bit more encouraging. People started to go back training. Now, in Wales, they locked us down. Our government took the unusual step of saying, we're locking us down we were doing it though every 2 weeks, and it went on for about a further 6 weeks in total. So I think the guys in England were out and clicking their heels, and we were still locked in for I think it was about 6 weeks. And then, we all went back, started doing, there was training, the gyms open, there was training, we could go to the restaurants and the bars and what have you, cinemas. So things we thought were a little bit of normality, but I mean, I knew at the back of my mind, we were always, it wasn't over, it was going to happen again. That wasn't the end of it. And of course, they began to lock us down again. We did a little lockdown in Wales, 2 weeks fire break, and England carried on as normal. So when we came out of the fire break, it was just on the last Polaris weekend. When we came out of the fire break, that's when they locked England down. So in England are locked down. We're out and free again, roaming the streets. We are.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're able to be. I'm going to the gym after this. Now I'm going to go for a swim after we've completed here, and maybe have a coffee in the coffee bar there.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll go up to see my wife's parents this evening, and have some dinner with them. So we're out and about. There's a little bit of normality for us at the moment, but of course in England they still got the 4-week lockdown. But Wales stayed locked down those extra 6 weeks or so. So I think our infection rate was that much lower from the start.
Cool.
So Boris
Did you find it?
Let everybody run amok in England. Too early, too soon.
Were you? Did you find like it brings people together? It brought you closer, like with your family, with your wife and stuff.
It's well, yeah. Well, yes,
Hard, right?
You're stuck together. It does. I mean, my oldest son was traveling last year, and he was in the Far East. Well, you've met him, Asher, as Callum. It's so he was in Thailand and Vietnam and places, Bali, and ended up in Australia. Well, he came back home to the UK. The end of January, I think it was, middle end of January. So back, and it's the first time he's been back home with us since he left for college or university. So it's about, what is it, 6 years or so, I think, something. So it's nice to have him back. The youngest one was in university and he's in Bath, so he stayed up there for the lockdown and everything. He came home for about 2 weeks when he was allowed to, and that was it. He said, I'm going back up to Bath. His friends are all up there. They'll share in the house. It's more fun for him up there. But we've had Callum at home, and I thought, you feel for him because 25 years old, can't see his friends. He's locked in with his parents, and we've tried to make the best of it, watching old 80s movies and
nice.
And Wednesday night we'd have a pizza takeaway, and then Friday we'd have something else. So rather than go to a restaurant, we'd have a little takeaway, and then he'd do some cooking and things. So we were trying to make a bit of we have our moments, of course, yeah, but we are, of course, we're very close now. And in that time, I was he'd never passed his driving test, so I was taking him out in the car. So once they let us out after lockdown, he applied for his test and got his test done. So some good came from that, I guess. So my wife has taken it upon herself to do the whole house, the whole garden. She spent about 2 months re-slating the front of the garden, digging up the plants, taking the ivy off the walls. And I mean, she worked hard. She got herself some abs and some guns doing it, I'll be honest with you. And
nice.
a 50-year-old lady doing this. So she was thoroughly enjoyed it. She did a fantastic job outside of the house now. So she's enjoyed it. She's got the garage. That's a new project now, painting the inside of the garage and everything. So it's great. She loves it because she was working for Tatami up until November of last year. Then she stepped back. Her role was becoming quite didn't need her there. So she started step back. So she was a little bit bored in the house. Well, so she's it's great. It is. It's been good for this.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've missed my wife's parents. I've missed spending time with them. We see them now, but that's the one. We used to see them once a week, every week. So.
Oh, that's good. That's something that there is something positive out of it, and I think it's really important that people discuss that as well, because there's so much focus on the shit and the negative, just how negative things are. Yeah. Life sucks, but we need to, try and be positive about everything and look for the good in things.
Well, you're absolutely right, Ash. In this process here, Callum, my son, has been home with us, and he picked up some yoga classes at home here, and then they wanted to do virtual classes. So he's now picked up a lot of virtual classes. So he's gained a lot of, this lockdown has helped to gain him a lot more potential customers in the future and extra classes. And they've also set up, ready in time for next year, we're hoping, Tanit Yoga Week. So in much the same way as we went to BJJ Summer Week, and that's what I met you, Carmen. I got to say, it's one of the most fantastic weeks. It was so great that they were able to put it on out there in September. We were lucky. We called.
That was amazing.
To fly in. The guys do an amazing job out there. It was reduced numbers this year, but it was still 180 there. And I love going to Sardinia. It's a fantastic place. So when we were up there with Lela and the rest of the guys and Danielle, and we were speaking there because Callum come and took some yoga classes out there and got talking about doing the yoga week, because Lela has always been saying about doing the yoga week out there. He's never got around to it. I said, well, look, Callum would be more than happy to help you along with that. So they've been working together in the background as well, getting that set up. So in the hope that there's going to be a yoga week, two yoga camps next year set around the summer week for BJJ as well. So I think they'll have some yoga in the summer as well. So again, some good, whereas perhaps they wouldn't have had the time to do that if the pair of them, Manny in Sardinia and Callum at home, they wouldn't have had the time to connect. So they've been working behind the scenes now to get that, and it sounds like it's going to be fantastic. But you like your yoga?
Cool. I love BJJ and yoga. They go so well together. Yeah, I think it's really important for practitioners of the grappling arts to make sure that they stretch and the balance and the centering. I mean, not just physically but mentally. The balance that comes with both of those things, just they go hand in hand. They're both meditative, I find.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, they do definitely. Well, Callum hadn't been on the mat for about 12 or 13 years, I think, or thereabouts, maybe 11, 12 years, about 12 years. When he was out in Sardinia, he had a couple of little rolls when he was out. Then it's the first time he'd been, and he'd never done no-gi, but he put some no-gi stuff on. He had a little grapple with a couple of guys, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, his flexibility for yoga, it does go hand in glove. I mean, he still remembers BJJ from when he trained as a youngster, and of course, he's got more flexible now, and he was a bit thicker set as a kid, so he's got far more skills now. So it's they do show that they do go hand in glove.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think, I haven't spoken to him about it since, do you think he'll get back on the mats and start rolling?
Yeah, he's been saying about going down training locally, because Gareth and I own the gym. Gareth owns the gym side of it. We own the building Gareth the gym, and it's just up the road from me. It's about comes a mile and a half from my house. The gym is. It's
nice.
A little rural village. So we could go down to there anytime, but there are classes on there, but there's limited numbers. Of course, Gareth's Academy's got the elite gym status, so there's limited numbers can go. Once things start to progress further now, I think Callum said wants to go down and do a little bit more.
Oh, cool.
Keeps him off the streets.
Okay. We've done just over an hour, so maybe we can wrap this up. If there's anything you want to say or any messages to people listening, we're going to do the giveaway, of course. So thank you so much for offering that. We'll sort that out afterwards, and one of the listeners will get a voucher.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, get them. However you want to sort that out, with whatever, some sort of giveaway competition, whatever you do, you just give me the email address of whoever, and we'll sort them out. We put £100 worth of kit up for grabs for them to have. Really speaking, the only message I have is to all our customers and our fans, say thank you very, very much for supporting us throughout these last 6 months, or for the whole of the year, in fact, because without your support, there's a good chance we could have gone under. And not only would there have been about 25 jobs gone down here in South Wales, and they're not easy to come by down here, there would have been one less jiu-jitsu company for you to buy your gear from. So thanks ever so much to everybody for supporting us. And don't forget, guys, if you've got any issues with any of your products at all, we're always here to look after you and get any issues resolved. And any feedback you want to give us about products, about service, about anything, we're always here to listen. We're not just a faceless corporation. We're a bunch of guys who really want to listen to our customers. We want to make sure everybody's happy. So don't be afraid to get in touch. And thanks for the support.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lee. Honestly, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And we'll keep in touch. I love what you do. You're a great guy, a sweet, lovely person with an amazing vision, amazing brand. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Ash. Thank you very much. The sentiments are reciprocated, buddy. I'm very fond. We had some good times in Sardinia, and I hope to God we do it again next
time. Definitely. For sure. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Excellent. I'll just connect you, and then I'll finish up the video. I'll send you links to it afterwards. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Ash. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 24 of Shifty Perspective. That was Lee Jones from Tatami, Fightwear, and from Polaris Grappling. If you are not aware of Tatami and you are involved in the martial arts, well then check them out. You probably will. If you've been to a gym where people are rolling, doing jiu-jitsu, grappling, then you're going to have seen people, especially in Europe, wearing Tatami gear. Great quality stuff, and they've done a giveaway for this podcast. So one of the listeners will receive a £100 voucher. Thank you so much for your support with Shifty Perspective. I really, really, really fucking enjoy it. And I love the great feedback. Please, if you like it, do hit the subscribe button. Do give a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. And if you can, share it on your social media, because the only way this will keep growing is by people sharing it. We have some exciting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have a few scientists lined up. We have a couple of people involved in drugs legislation, fighting the drugs law that is possibly changing in the Netherlands. We have also a doctor who is setting up the Europe's first cryonics facility, which will be cryopreservation. So that's freezing you when you die. There's some really, really exciting